There are several reasons and motives why we recognize a person. Among others, we recognize a person because that person is lovable. We love that person because that person brings out the best in us. He cares about us or she cares about us. We recognize a person because that person is one we respect. He or she is respectable and does not demand respect as the person enjoys respect from us. We recognize a person perhaps because we are afraid of that person, and there is a need to just recognize. Otherwise, that person may take against us our non-recognition of him or of her. Interestingly, in the gospel, we have the unclean spirits recognizing Jesus. But this recognition is born out of fear, because this unclean spirit declares, I know who you are. You are the Holy One of God. And what are you going to do with us? Fear. In our day-to-day living, we may be rendering recognition of, first of all, recognition of God. If we recognize God, what is our motive that we recognize God? In the letter to the Hebrews, there is a mention about God being the one, in Jesus being the one who is the fullness, and then referring to human being as the greatness or the grandeur of human. There is a recognition. But when we look at people, when we look at one another, how do we recognize each other? Do we recognize each other because we care about each other? Do we recognize each other because we respect each other? Or we recognize one another because we are afraid of what we can get from one another, especially the harm that we think the person is capable of doing toward us? So we render our recognition of God because we believe God cares so much about us, and He recognizes us as people with so much of greatness. We are lovable in the eyes of God. Do we recognize God because we respect Him and we render our adoration and praise toward Him in prayer? Or do we recognize God because we are afraid of what God can do to us? It's an invitation for all of us to think about how or what is the motive and reason why we recognize God, and what kind of recognition do we render Him. What about recognition of one another? What is the motive and the reason why we recognize each other? And what kind of recognition do we render about each other? We come together in the Eucharist and we recognize God as God who loves and cares so much about us. And in this celebration of the Eucharist, He let us experience that love. And after the Mass, we reach out to one another and show our recognition of one another with love and with respect.